Hey guys, it's KJ from the Scariest Movie Ever channel on YouTube. And lately I've been looking around at the world we're in and asking myself, when did comedy become so unfunny? I see this as a symptom to a much bigger issue, and I'll be discussing those issues as well. Because everything in our world now, everything in our society has really taken a turn for the dark. Just watching news reports, one could easily say that the rising level of hateful behavior is appalling. We now have United States representatives calling for harassing other public officials of the opposing political parties, restaurant owners refusing to serve government officials while others refuse to serve the police. Hollywood actors and comedians say threatening, vile, and disgusting things against political leaders and their family members. And sadly, we see large numbers of people actually applauding and cheering this kind of behavior. If ever this world needed a good laugh, needed good comedy, now's the time. Because everything's become very hateful. There's a lot of vitriol out there, and people are losing control. People are losing it. We're seeing many adults now behave worse than children, exhibiting a genuine lack of maturity by name-calling, hurling insults, and even engaging in physical confrontations. The lack of maturity is hideous. What a state of affairs we're in. I've seen a far better level of behavior, self-control, and maturity exhibited by little kids. However, though we may find it shocking in one sense, we are not surprised if we're familiar with God's Word. For instance, we can read that because mankind rejects God, they have a debased mind, and they engage in sexual immorality, wickedness, covetousness. More and more people in this world are becoming full of envy, murder, strife, deceit, evil-mindedness. They are whisperers, they are backbiters, haters of God, violent, proud. They are boasters, inventors of evil things, disobedient to parents, undiscerning, untrustworthy. They are unloving, unforgiving, unmerciful. But this practically summarizes today's news. In a week of news articles, you can probably check off most of the items we just listed. We can read another prophecy of the last days, 2 Timothy 3, where we're warned that in the last days perilous times will come, for men will become lovers of themselves. They'll become lovers of money, boasters, proud, blasphemers. They'll be unthankful, unholy, unloving, unforgiving. They will be slanderers, without self-control, brutal, despisers of good, traitors. They'll be headstrong. They'll be lovers of pleasure rather than lovers of God, having a form of godliness but denying its power. And from such people we should turn away. Again, that's a description of the news we see practically every day. Not only is this broken world really in need of a good laugh, right, of some good comedy, but also of some true spirituality. So this world is obviously slipping into a much darker place. I typically see all of this as a spiritual battle. I profess to be a follower of Christ. And as being a follower of Christ, I believe it's wise that we avoid such people as we just discussed. In fact, we should do the opposite of those things that we see in society right now. To speak evil of no one, to be peaceable, gentle, showing all humility to all men. Because we ourselves were also once foolish, disobedient, deceiving, deceived, and serving various lusts and pleasures, living in malice and envy, hateful and hating one another. So as I was saying earlier, that the death of comedy is actually a symptom of a bigger issue. We are in a beast system, and it's manifesting more and more all the time, and it has over the last several years. It's like the end game for humanity is right around the corner, and we see this once again in many areas in our reality, comedy being just one of them. But I'm not the only one to notice this trend. There's plenty of articles out there about how comedy just isn't as funny anymore. Here's another one. Comedians today aren't funny, they're mean and vulgar. Now here's another example of just how dark and disturbing what they call comedy in our world now has become. Not long ago, the National Abortion Rights Action League released a video called Comedians in Cars Getting Abortions, in which this comedian here, Alice Wetterland, is traveling around town trying desperately but unsuccessfully to find a place to get an abortion. Aside from the fact that this topic really isn't a laughing matter, the comedians in the video discuss procuring an abortion in really casual terms as if they're hunting for the best burrito spot in town. And aside from the fact this topic really isn't a laughing matter, it depicts a non-existent abortion shortage that supposedly is depriving women of their reproductive rights. If this video is to be believed, abortion clinics in the US are about as scarce as Blockbuster video stores, and apparently even the clinics that do exist are hampered by so many ridiculous laws that they might as well not be there at all. So this is what they call a straw man argument, and it's been expounded heavily upon by this group, National Abortion Rights League, and other pro-abortion groups. I mean, it's propaganda, basically. But since it's done with comedians, it's funny, right? Like, it takes the edge off. Not exactly. This comedy skit thinks it's funny to kill babies. And this has been a dark trend I've seen in comedy as well. You know, abortion as a subject being put out there as if it's funny. Here's another example. Netflix cancels Michelle Wolf's comedy show after disgusting jokes about abortion. So that wasn't the only time that this sick-minded person was joking about abortion. She also did it at the White House Correspondents' Dinner. She said Mike Pence is also very anti-choice. He thinks abortion is murder, which first of all, don't knock it till you've tried it. And when you do try it, really knock it. You gotta get that baby out of there. That's an actual joke she said at the White House Correspondents' Dinner. She also said, I know a lot of you are very anti-abortion, unless it's the one you got from your secret mistress. So once again, you're dealing with a very sick-minded person, or a reprobate mind, you could say. But this is a comedian, right? This is a comedy nowadays. We should at least be thankful that Netflix canceled this lady's show. For that, they should be commended. And here's another example, and actually this came from Chris Rock's Netflix special. It always goes back to Netflix. But here's a comedian that used to appeal to a larger audience, but as he's gotten older, he's become much more racist himself. So here's another time that Netflix got it right. They actually canceled Chelsea Handler's show after just 2 seasons. After reading some different articles on this, it seems that Netflix realized she just wasn't really bringing in the numbers. But they also spoke about her hateful comedy. She claims to be a feminist comedian, but her particular brand of feminism is very dark and very cruel. So now that her show's been canceled, she'll be turning to more activism. Again, no surprise. Most of these people that are getting these shows are usually very, very far left. Why is it that they have such a corner on the market on comedy? Why does it always have to be these far left-leaning people? I see this as just another example of the beast system we're in. These kinds of people get promoted. Now here's another example, again, taking us back to Netflix. Sarah Silverman had her comedy special on Netflix, and where she mocked Jesus and promoted abortion. Once again, are you seeing a continuing theme here? Are you seeing these connections? And then surprise, surprise, here's another extremely liberal Jewish comedian who claims to be a feminist making fun of abortion. Again, are you seeing these connections? Are you seeing how all this ties together? Here's 4 of her jokes on abortion. This is from Amy Schumer. Says, I have an excuse, actually, why I've been drinking so much. I haven't said this out loud yet. It's exciting. I'm drinking for 2. Thank you. Wow, I mean just for now. Somebody's being evicted. On her best friend's pregnancy, she said, I'll never forget how she told us. She took us all out to brunch and she was like, you guys, I'm keeping this one. She says it's a weird age. They're like, Amy, I'm pregnant, and I still don't know whether to be like, congratulations, or do you need a ride? And then there's nothing more awkward than going to the first birthday party of a little girl when you told her mom to get rid of her, because the kid can tell. But again, this is comedy, right? I mean, it's funny because it's comedy. But what are we really making fun of? What are we really mocking here? So personally, I believe Jon Stewart plays a really big role of where comedy is right now in our world. The death of comedy, if you will. He had a 16-year run on Comedy Central, meshing politics and comedy. So certainly what's happened is a comedy has become politicized. Unfortunately, everything's become politicized. And this is leading to the death of real comedy. Pre-fake news, we had Jon Stewart setting the stage. Right here, he turned lies into comedy and brainwashed a generation. He had 16 years on Comedy Central. Just try watching and reading some of the highlights of his shows and you'll find no jokes or very few witty remarks. Even with a team of writers for his scripted news update segments, the best response he could usually come up with was a goofy expression. And that's what soon came to pass for comedy in this humorless post-comedic world we live in. The liberal popular media have created a new paradigm by which comedy is defined as whatever makes the far left feel satisfied with themselves and their beliefs, whether it's actually funny or not. And that's why the most common reaction to this far left-wing comedy style is applause, and not laughter. It should be laughter. So now, after decades of this liberal dominance of the entertainment industry, the death of comedy is almost complete. Next time you're perusing the comedy section on one of your television apps or somewhere online, or maybe even checking a video store, not that many of those exist any longer, see how many funny movies you can actually find, without going at least as far back in time as, say, the 80s or maybe early 90s. Not only are very few of them made anymore, but they're now whole categories of, quote, comedies that don't even try to be funny. They don't even attempt humor. And Netflix certainly isn't helping matters. And check this out, social justice warriors aren't funny. Laughter and enjoyment are out, emotional support are in, as Netflix's latest comedy special makes clear. There was a time when movies that called themselves romantic comedies were actually funny, or at least trying to be. But nowadays, modern so-called romantic comedies are little more than celebrations of the feminization of men. Another major issue with liberal political humor, which seems to be most humor nowadays, is that liberals themselves are the inventors of political correctness. Much of what passes for humor these days is mocking. It's mocking people's political beliefs, their spiritual or religious beliefs, while mocking is a covert and subtle form of overt verbal assault. The victim is traumatized by the initial attack and then typically invalidated and left with emotional and psychological pain left unresolved and created in them. But this is a very common tactic in what we call modern comedy. It's also really crazy to think that there is a screening process with so-called far-left humor or far-left comedians, which is the majority of our popular comedians nowadays. They do screen themselves, it seems, to make sure that they're not offending certain groups or certain people. For instance, they don't want to offend feminists. In fact, many of the most popular female comedians today consider themselves feminists. They don't want to offend transvestites. They definitely stay away from Muslims. Atheists are protected as well, and so are Satanists. So considering all of this, it doesn't leave a whole lot of wiggle room, does it? So it's no wonder that practically every joke out there is usually targeted towards somebody on the right, the conservative, or the Christians. Here's another really sick and demented trend we've been seeing in so-called modern comedy. All of these so-called comedians are making these pedo-type jokes, right? And jokes about intercourse with children. Remember, Disney removed director James Gunn from Guardians of the Galaxy 3 after some of his older tweets resurfaced, where he was joking about intercourse with children, and also how funny it was when a monkey ejaculated on a child actor. So if we're having a discussion about modern comedy, we have to bring up Seth Rogen. Seth Rogen has his hands in many pots in Hollywood. He's a writer, producer, actor. He's also one of the greatest peddlers of filth out there right now in the entertainment industry. I've shown in other videos in the past how many of these comedians nowadays say that they're atheists. And I personally believe a lot of them hide behind this moniker, because many of these comedians that call themselves atheists are openly embracing Satanism and satanic ideas. This right here is an image from one of his films called The Night Before. It's about him and some of his friends getting together on Christmas Eve for a night of debauchery. It even included a scene where Rogen's character, while wearing this Star of David Christmas sweater, pukes his guts out at a midnight mass while he's railing loudly against the charge that Jews killed Jesus. And that's just one sequence in the movie. I mean, just like most of his other films, it has filled this movie with blasphemous humor, lots of drug use, full nudity, a lot of casual sexual type activity, and pervasive, rough, and crude language. He is a peddler of filth. Seth Rogen's also one of the creators and producers behind the TV series Preacher, which is seriously one of the most shockingly blasphemous things I've ever seen in my life. There's actually a sequence where he has a man that's playing Jesus, and he's depicted as having sex with a woman the night of the Last Supper. I mean, this is an absolute assault on the sensibilities of all Christians, as well as people of goodwill who aren't Christians. He even boasted on Twitter, he said, "If this isn't a good endorsement of Preacher, I don't know what is." And he linked to a story from Fox News criticizing the pornographic scene. So of course with Rogen and most of the other people out there in Hollywood Babylon, it's beyond the pale to glorify Nazis or to criticize Jews or to even criticize Israel, but if you even draw a picture of Muhammad, your life could be endangered. But depict Jesus Christ in all kinds of sacrilege, and it's something to be proud of, I guess. Again, when I said earlier that, looking at comedy the way it is and the state that it's in right now, it's just a symptom of a bigger issue. We're living at a time where faith is really dwindling all around the world, and of course we're seeing it reflect back on our silver screens, right? There was a survey conducted on young millennials about a year ago from a company called the Banda Group, and they discovered that only 48% of them actually believed in any kind of a god at all. And again, this is being reflected on our silver screens. It's no wonder that so-called atheists like Seth Rogen are so incredibly popular, or that their work is so popular. And it's all very anti-God, very anti-Christ. The devil is all about do as thou wilt, right? That's the whole idea. Do whatever you want to do, right? And that's the theme that's pushed in all of these films. Total nihilism, total anarchy. Sausage Party is truly one of the most shocking and disgusting films I've ever seen. I didn't even make it all the way through it. It's all about food items that live in a giant supermarket, and they long for the day when they'll be purchased by, quote, the gods, or customers, and taken out into the, quote, great beyond to begin a wonderful life that none of them knows anything about. The movie actually opens up with a musical number extolling the virtues of purchasing gods and the glorious life after checkout. But one day a pot of honey mustard is actually returned to the store with a terrible story. He says that there is no great beyond. Instead, all the products in the store are doomed to be eaten after every imaginable kind of sadistic preparation. Skinned alive, sliced and diced, boiled, baked, or is simply flung down the gullet of some sharp-toothed human. The gods are evil in this movie, and monstrous, and must be stopped. There's a sequence where Frank the hot dog is prowling the closed store at night for answers, and he bumps into the imperishables. It's a bottle of firewater and a Twinkie. It's a kind of an unofficial clergy of the different food items. The firewater admits that the whole framework of gods and the great outdoors was something he made up just to take away the despair from any of the other products, to give them something to look forward to live for. So their religion has been a lie all along, a consoling, comforting lie, but a lie nonetheless. It's as if they're in the Matrix, or like the Aztecs, they're groomed unknowingly for human sacrifice. This theme, these ideas in that film actually draw comparisons to another movie I saw a while back called The Invention of Lying. And this is from Ricky Gervais, who incidentally is just another one of these so-called comedians out in Hollywood that claim to be atheist. In the movie, Gervais tells one lie. It's the first lie ever told in his society's history to comfort a woman whose mother is dying. And to his own great dismay, he accidentally, in the movie, invents God. I know it's weird, I know it doesn't make much sense, and that's probably why the movie didn't do very well. But once again, these are the kind of movies that get millions of dollars of funding to get made, and to get put out there, and to imprint our minds, and to program us. It also takes us back to another film starring Seth Rogen called Paul, which Rogen starred in, of course. He didn't write, but in this he was an alien character that's able to transmit the entirety of human knowledge into another's mind with just a touch of his finger. And after he shows a human this, religion is no longer an option. Kristen Wiig plays a one-eyed, backwoods evangelical true believer, and she loses all of her faith once she has finger contact with Paul. If there's no God in the film, why is she not swearing like a sailor, she wonders, and getting high all the time and having a lot of irresponsible sex? And that's exactly what her transition is in the film. Even right here in this image, you see she's wearing a t-shirt that says "Evolve This." It's a picture of Jesus Christ shooting Darwin in the face. And the one-eye symbolism is, well, I think that speaks for itself. We know about the all-seeing eye, the one eye of the beast system. So this is a consciousness working through many of these people, especially since most of them don't have the protection of the Holy Spirit. If they really are atheists, or even if they're just claiming to be but secretly Satanist, they don't have that protection. So many of them are being used as puppets. So all of this brings us back to Netflix. There's a few shows I want to talk to you about here. Netflix has quickly become the #1 streaming service in the world. It's obviously incredibly popular, so it's the perfect place to go to when we're dealing with the beast system, to see what is it that the beast system is promoting, what is it producing, what are we being imprinted with, what are we being programmed with. And there's a couple of, quote, comedy shows from Netflix that are absolutely disgusting, but I do want to talk about them here just for a moment. So this right here is one of the most foul TV shows I've ever seen, and it's blatantly satanic and incredibly dark, definitely attacking children, attacking innocence and purity. It's called Big Mouth, and it's about two children, friends, 11 or 12 years old, who are fighting the temptations of sexual frustration during puberty. And they talk about this in a very adult way, especially about their own lusts. It's interesting, once a child faces any kind of sexual temptation, a, quote, hormone monster or demon comes out and tries to persuade them into furthering their action. They even go as far as pushing homosexual activity when a boy drops his towel in front of another young boy, and then they push incest behavior as well when the father of the boy says it's okay to touch his friend's penis and even give it a little kiss. Even in this image here, the symbolism always fills in the gaps. The symbolism is another language. So of course there's a pentagram right there on the wall. Of course there's a Baphomet, right? Because what you're seeing right here is actually this. We're dealing with a consciousness. Again, this is the beast system manifesting. All of this stuff is coming out. All of this is being normalized. It's becoming mainstream. So over the last few years, the Satanic Temple has been trying to post these different statues in different places through America. And of course they have the children there, because ultimately that's the goal. To disease the mind of the children, to pervert the minds of the children, to destroy the innocence, the purity. This show also dedicated an entire episode to glorifying Planned Parenthood, which of course massacres hundreds of thousands of preborn children every year. Planned Parenthood spokeswoman Dinah Stevens says there's a lot of stigma around abortion, so she was grateful when she saw that Big Mouth had an episode including their range of services. And here's one of their advertisements, and again, these are children. They're supposed to be around 11 or 12. They're prepubescent in this series. All of them have their hands around their genitals. Coming of age all over the place. Ha ha, you get it? So it's an ejaculation joke about children. This is satanic. This is degenerate. It's disgusting. It's really sick to think that there's adults playing these roles. So again, keeping in mind that this show is about prepubescent children who are coming of age and eventually hitting puberty, here's some of the names or the titles of some of the episodes. I Survived Jesse's Bat Mitzvah, Ejaculation, Everybody Bleeds, Am I Gay, Requiem for a Wet Dream, Girls Are Horny Too, Sleepover, and The Pornscape, just to name a few. In the very first episode of the series, there's a degenerate scene showing a 12-year-old boy full frontal naked. And of course, in this beast system, garbage like this is applauded. Critics seem to love this show. But again, I ask you, how is this targeted to adults? What kind of an adult wants to watch puberty-aged children in sexualized situations? They don't. Most of us normal adults don't want to see this, unless they have these, perhaps, pedo-type tendencies. If you've never heard of cultural Marxism, please look it up. It takes cultural Marxist, far left-wing Hollywood toilet humor to brand new lows, this show does. And it certainly seems like a way to normalize pedo-type activity, if not just another disgusting tactic to indoctrinate young children and their parents into accepting such horrible behavior. And again, unsurprisingly, the leftist media outlets alongside television and film review sites are giving this show phenomenal ratings. Again, just to kind of show you how incredibly disgusting this show is, this is just a panel of different images. I went into a Bing image search and came up with these different panels, but you see the one right there in the middle that says HD trailer, the middle top. That's literally a sequence in this cartoon where there's an 11, 12-year-old girl looking at her private parts in a mirror and having a conversation with it. But this is funny, right? It's supposed to be a comedy. There's absolutely no way on God's green earth they could have got away with this if this was actually live action. But I guess since it's animated, it's okay. And of course, one of the most disgusting shows that Netflix has ever produced is called Insatiable. Insatiable is about a young girl in high school who loses a lot of weight, and then she reinvents herself so she can shut down critics who bullied her when she was overweight. It's the basic idea. One of the plot points in the series is she winds up entering a beauty contest, and it's called the Miss Magic Jesus pageant. I seriously still can't believe some of the things they've put in this show. At one point there was a chorus of around 15 women, young women in white robes during this pageant, singing these disgusting lyrics like, "Spirit, please ride me," while mimicking lasso motions with their hands. They continued with, "Oh Jesus, you fill me in every single way." So on top of that grotesque mockery of Christianity, the show also features a scene in which the main character, the young lady, receives oral sex from her boyfriend on top of a Noah's Ark playground structure. It's in the parking lot of the church. But that's only after getting baptized into the light of Christ. And here's some of the actual lyrics from that song. It says, "We'll journey together, your hand on my heart, whatever the weather, a love so strong, so long, so hard. Oh Jesus, you fill me in every single way, sweet, sweet Jesus inside me. I got you deep in my soul, deep, deep, deep in my soul. Yeah, oh Spirit, please." I don't think I need to go on any further. I think you kind of get the gist, right? But this is funny, right? Because it's comedy. I wanted to add this in there real quick, since we're on the subject of this mocking of Christians and Christianity. This is a spirit we're dealing with. It's an antichrist spirit, and it's growing and manifesting more and more in this beast system. This right here is just another example of it. So not only are we seeing this spirit manifest in our, quote, entertainment, but you're literally seeing it manifest around you in real life. So those are a few examples of some of the most disgusting shows on Netflix, but we also have to throw in an honorable mention, because they seem to be doing drag queen children TV shows now. This is a show called Drag Tots. You heard me correctly. It's about children that are cross-dressers. Again, I go back to this statue, this symbol, because this is what they're normalizing. Drag tots? Really? Twisting the gender of children? It all goes back to this. It goes back to the Baphomet. I've shown in other videos how the Baphomet is rising. Again, it's all a part of this beast system, this satanic system. So not only are we seeing it in our entertainment, but we're actually seeing it, again, in our real lives all around us. The devil has come to steal, kill, and destroy. And in this sick system that we're in, children are a primary target. But of course, we're seeing a lot more of this. It's the gay agenda in popular media and entertainment. And it's certainly not slowing down. This is all on the increase. This is why you have stories like this. I mean, this is so anti-creation to me. This is so anti-God. Parents raising babies and letting their own children decide what gender they are. How incredibly dangerous is that? How toxic is that? But all of this, again, is becoming normalized. We're not just seeing it in our entertainment, being programmed through movies and TV shows, etc. This is happening in real life. People are actually making these decisions. The programming has worked for all these years, unfortunately. Here's a story that just came out a few months ago. It's another classic example of how this programming is working on the youth. A surge in the number of school-age girls seeking gender reassignment actually led the government to order research into the reasons behind the increase. This is more of the beast system manifesting. It's the as above, so below paradigm. We're living in a topsy-turvy world. Everything's flipped upside down. So I've reported on these drag queen story hours. I'm sure many of you, if you haven't seen it through me, you've seen it in other places. A lot of people have been talking about this. There's a real movement going on. It's happening in a lot of libraries around America. They're literally having drag queens go in and read stories to children. And look right here, a judge rejects conservative Christian groups' requests to halt drag queen story hour. So it's not like people aren't out there fighting. They're just not winning. Here's just one of the images. You can do other searches and you can see that this is no joke. This is actually happening nationwide right now. And take a look at this image for a second. What do we see, right? Again, we see full-grown men dressing up as women, with children literally on their laps as they're reading them these stories. But let me show you what you're really looking at. You're looking at this, right? Once again, you're looking at this, at the Baphomet, the transgender with children, the transgender affecting children, the Baphomet attacking their innocence, attacking their purity. This is a physical manifestation of the beast system, and it's manifesting more and more. We battle against spirits and principalities in high places. If you're one of God's children, if you follow the ways of Christ, you know you're not a part of this system. We are strangers in a strange land, a peculiar people to this beast system, because we don't fit in. We know we don't. And we should be proud that we don't fit into this disgusting system. So keep your armor on. Keep it tight. Because again, this is a spiritual battle that we're in. And I'll leave you with that. So once again, thank you so much for watching my video. I hope it helps. And until next time, take care of yourselves out there, okay?